good thing we didn't watch this movie until today.
Why?
Because I went into the woods this morning.
Ooh, that's true.
Would have scared me.
Let's be real, Dad. You're scared anyways.
You can go with that? You gonna insult me right off the bat?
Now I'm scared.
Maybe you should be. Maybe you were asking for it.
Victim blaming, Dad. Real nice.
Don't worry, very soon you will be the victim.
Okay, then.
Open threat. Hello, and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. I am Phil Rood. I'm the dad.
And I'm Austin Rood, the son. Every week we watch a movie, and then we talk about it.
Every week. Every week we have the same script, and you always forget to read the rest of your line.
I'm just that kind of special. This week is part of our Halloween week.
It is part of our Halloween.
Or month.
It's part of our Halloween series.
Yes.
Before that, what are we checking out? You still on the West Wing?
I am. I'm on season 2 now.
Cool.
Still going strong.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Has Bradley Whitford tried to vote for a third term for the president yet? Has he tried to...
He has not abducted any black people.
He's not auctioning off black in-laws or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay.
He got shot, though. So
really?
That's in line with...
Did he get shot, or did he get hit with a deer head with the antlers?
Nope, he was shot. By a white supremacist, actually.
Speaking of deer antlers, I mean, we do have a through line from last week's movie to this week's movie.
This time it's...
a goat.
A
but
goat.
It is antlers, yeah.
Yeah.
I just realized that. Wow. I wonder if we can connect all these movies with...
How many horns?
With antler impalings.
I actually think there are...
There are probably some more others. Let's see, we could do the
in
Lost...
horror movies.
We could do the Lost Boys. There has to be, like, one of the Friday the 13th movie. I mean, it's at a camp. There's got to be deer heads somewhere. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura with the stuffed heads room.
Yes. Oh, man.
It's a very scary movie. I think we can fit it in.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Have you been watching anything?
I tried to watch Russian Doll, the Netflix series.
Oh, is that the, like the Groundhog Day, but...
Yeah, like, she dies over and over again.
But she's kind of fed up with it.
Yeah, I found everybody on that show completely insufferable. I only lasted about almost 2 episodes. And then I was just like, yeah, I don't like these people. It's a little too hip for me, I think. I don't know. There's just, everybody was kind of I'm the coolest person in the room, and I'm going to constantly remind you that I'm the coolest person in the room.
Right. I watched it, but I kind of thought the point was that they're insufferable. These are elite people who, like...
Sure. I don't want to spend my time with people like that.
Right. There's a lesson learned.
I'm sure there's a lesson learned for the main character, but it was literally everybody on that show.
Yeah, the side characters remain...
so annoying. But, no, I got out of there and I watched somebody else who others would argue is equally insufferable in different ways, but I found it interesting just the same. There is a short documentary series. It's a 2-part documentary about Frank Sinatra on Netflix. It's basically his life story, kind of reflecting on his life and career and the ways in which he was actually a very progressive and cool guy, and the ways that he was maybe not so good to people around him sometimes.
Interesting. I don't know much about Frank Sinatra other than his music and that he had ties to the mafia.
Yeah, that's explored in there a little bit.
Okay.
His several marriages and the problems that he had with women, with being faithful, with maybe being controlling. I had no idea he was married to Mia Farrow at one point, but yeah.
Who is that?
Mia Farrow was married to Woody Allen for a long time. She's in Rose.
She knows how to pick them then.
She was very young, and he was, it's very problematic there. But I mean, honestly, like Frank Sinatra, the music of Frank Sinatra is very, classic. It's not something I'm completely immersed in. Like the standards that I've heard, I enjoy a lot. I enjoy that kind of music a lot. But to get in and sort of see a deeper exploration of his life was very interesting. He was a very charitable, very like cool person in some respects, and in some, I mean, it's just sort of like, I think if you take anybody's life apart, they are problematic in some ways, and they are also very good in some way. I don't think anybody is all one thing or another, and I think this...
You have to wonder, though, like, how much of that is, I'm just doing this for PR, so that if anyone finds out about this, that it lessens the impact? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a harsh...
I think it was fairly genuine. I think, by all accounts, from people who knew him, a lot of that stuff was that he came from very little.
Sure.
And when he made it big, he understood that he had made it big, But, yes, he also very much enjoyed being a rich guy, too, and kind of doing whatever he wanted to as well. So, I mean, it's just... I thought it's a very good documentary. I think it's very honest in that way, and that it's not just like, man, Frank was the best.
You can paint both sides.
That it is very honest and saying, yeah, Frank was not an easy person to get along with sometimes. So it talked to biographers, it talked to people who knew him. I recommend it if you're at all interested in a profile of somebody who was that iconic.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, but that was leading up to today, where we watched our movie for this week. And this week we watched the 2015 horror, mystery, thriller, throw in a couple of supernatural comedy. No.
Not a comedy.
The Witch, a New England folk tale. Starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, Kate Dickie, Harvey Scrimshaw, and Daniel Malick as the voice of Black Phillip. This film was written and directed by Robert Eggers, who I've seen 2 of his movies now. I'm convinced he is just out to make the most batshit crazy movies that he can.
What else have you seen from him?
The Lighthouse came out...
Oh, I've heard about
last year or the year before. There's a couple very similar scenes, and kind of...
Like to this?
Yeah, there's the scene where the mom crawls into the grave.
Okay.
There's kind of a similar scene at the end of The Lighthouse is just insane. But both are also about isolation. They're about sort of madness on the edge of the world kind of thing.
Right.
But, and I would say they're both kind of big swings. They're both like...
This movie feels big.
It feels like a big choice, or a series of big choices, but the movie I think, feels small.
Right, I meant it feels big in, like, the things it's trying to tackle, almost.
Right, it's trying to make some big statements, or trying to tell a wild story. I think the things that it is... The choices they're making are bold. It's sort of like, this is either going to fall on its face, or it's going to impact the audience in a really big way.
I think it did impact the audience.
Well, you're a new audience to this. I've seen this movie a few times. I love this movie. But I want to know what you thought of it.
I honestly, as I was watching it, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be able to say about this movie in terms of, like, nitpicking, because, like, I was just so engrossed in it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm probably just going to be praising this movie the whole time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I have introduced a couple people to this movie. Part of the reason I picked it is because I wanted to introduce you to. This is one of those movies I want people to see, and I want to, your mom and I watched this movie, and it's one of those, if I sit down and watch it with you, I'm going to be a little worried that you don't like it. But
right.
And you
that kind of says something about how you connect to the movie, because you're like, oh, I'm sharing this thing that I really like. It's almost like a part of me, and I want you to like it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put that together yet. Like, almost like if you reject this movie, you're rejecting me a little bit. Like,
right. I didn't make this movie, but I'm championing it.
I am championing this movie a little bit. But yeah, I think I wanted... I like to see people's reaction to this movie. And you had a very similar reaction to your mom in that you just kind of sat quietly through this movie and absorbed it. And then at the end, it's like, to hear you say now that you enjoyed it, it's like, oh, whew. Because you don't, sometimes...
I was smiling at the end.
But your face looked horrified at the raven breastfeeding scene, at the crow.
Yes, because that is horrifying.
The imagery of that. But
mainly because I don't like boobs, but...
Don't worry, there wasn't much left.
Oh, God.
That's what I think is so powerful about this movie, is there is so much imagery in it, and some of it is super messed up and disturbing. Like, this isn't a jump scare movie.
Right.
There's a couple near the end.
I think there's a lot of sound editing to be like, oh, we're starting this scene on a big wood chop or a big crack of, like, stepping on a branch.
Right. There's
things
a lot
like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of atmosphere to this movie, and I think sound is a big part of that. But I think all of the things are just kind of chilling. They're not scary. They're not super suspenseful. But, let's start at the very beginning. The first thing, when the baby gets taken. Like, when...
It catches you off guard because it's so early in the movie.
It's just gone immediately.
Right.
Like, there's no way someone could have grabbed that baby and made it to the... and you're just... And to think about that is super scary. It's super disturbing. It's super scary.
Right, and then you're thinking, what if that was my kid, and I'm watching him, and then suddenly he's gone out of nowhere, and it's my fault.
I think there's a lot of parents who can honestly identify with this. I know I'm not alone in having this experience, but when you're out somewhere, and one of your kids, just kind of wanders away in a store.
Why do I feel like this is about me?
This is not about you.
I tend to wander.
Actually, this is when we were at the old house. Lane and I, Lane is Austin's older brother. Lane was a toddler. He was a little guy, maybe 3 at the time. And we were on the porch of the condo, and I was getting some stuff. I think we were going fishing and getting some stuff together. And I turned around and he was gone. He had walked out. I had left the patio gate open. Oh. I had only turned around for a minute, and this is what kids do. And he just wandered out.
The witch took him.
And it is terrifying, because you come out and you can go one way, you can go the other way. You can't see him, and you're
right.
like, what, And, I found him right around the corner. It wasn't a big deal. But we lived near a main road. I mean, it is terrifying for a minute, as I'm sitting here talking about my neglectful parent tendencies. But literally, anyone who's had charge over a little kid, anyone who is a parent or a guardian and has a little kid and has been in the store, it really only takes a second and your kid can step away from you. I think our current generation of helicopter parents, for all the crap they catch, have probably experienced this less. But it is a terrifying thing. And when I see this part of The Witch, when it happens to Thomason, it makes me realize, there's a whole bunch of people who have this unspoken story about the time they lost their kid at Walmart. And they are identifying with this in a very specific way right now. Yeah.
this is the time where it goes horribly wrong, where it isn't just, oh, the kid wandered off. It's
Sure,
they're
generally
gone.
it's not a witch that's working at Walmart who is
That's
taking
what
your
you think.
child away from you. But
Lane was tempted by the witch.
that's right. That's right. Actually, yeah, I can see that. He's been touched by the devil.
Get rid of him.
We love you, Lane. But yeah, little things like that, I think, just sort of set the tone of this movie. And also that sets the table of like, this is super dark and this is super tragic. Like,
I
right
think
off the
the
bat.
tone of this movie is set the moment they're in the court being banished.
Sure.
And it's like you don't know what's going to happen, and then suddenly they're leaving the plantation.
They're cast out, right?
Right, and all these people are looking at them, and it's like, oh, you can tell they're alone. It's
right.
not going to go well.
It's the isolation starts immediately.
Right.
How great is that shot of them leaving the plantation from the POV of the family when they're just sort of, the camera is panning out as they're leaving and everybody's kind of glancing at them.
Right.
And then they get out the gate and the gates just immediately close behind and they
I don't even see the gates until they close.
Right. Yeah. It really it's very basic, but it's very powerful, I think.
And then right after that is the shot of it's standing at the gate and they're getting further and further away
great
into
wide
the
open out
wilderness.
there.
Yeah.
It's really a cool bit of imagery, but you're right. It sets this tone of like, this family is isolated, even within their community. Before they leave, they're isolated. They're outcast already,
Right.
and that they all leave the courtroom, and Thomason kind of stalls.
She doesn't want to leave.
She kind of understands, like it's almost a thing of she has a feeling it's going to be horrible out there, without really understanding how bad, exactly why, I think.
Right. Well, I think there's a bit of an understanding with, like, they talk about England, like, oh, we want to go back. And then they see already the plantation, life is hard enough. And then now they don't even have that. They're just on their own.
Right. Yeah, they're pilgrims. They've come across, to leave your home because of you want religious freedom, and then you settle a religious community where, oh, guess what? You don't even have the freedom to speak freely here. And then
I disagree with you about religion.
They have to keep going further and further out into essentially the wilderness, which is really scary at the time when
it is.
They're far away, and also
the mortality rate of that time.
Well, sure,
is just awful. People were dying all over the place.
Well, they even say at the one point the William tells his wife, like, God has not taken a child from us until now. How blessed are we? Like, hey, yeah, we lost our baby, but look, we haven't lost any kids up until this point. We've made it,
we're privileged.
Like, there's this weird. It sort of reminds you of, like, there was this expectation that, oh yeah, if you have 5 kids, maybe 2 of them will see adult.
You gotta have that many kids to work the farm, just to expect to lose them.
You seriously did. I don't know what the mortality rate. I don't know if it was 2 would make it to adulthood, but I mean, I think typically you kind of expected, like, yeah, the law of averages, you're going to lose a kid somewhere. I mean, it's really a harsh time. And then to go out where you're completely on your own, no resources. They talk about going back to the plantation, so.
Right. It's sort of like they're saving grace throughout this movie.
But they don't want to fall back on it. Like, there's a lot of pride in, you can tell William doesn't want to go back because.
Well, the whole reason they left was because he was too prideful to.
Right.
Follow in line with their rules, because he had his own rules that he wanted to follow.
Well, he had his own line of thinking too. I think yes, he's very proud about it, but he also has like a integrity about whatever his belief is that they that differs from what the elders have in mind, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we don't get the specifics of why they're at odds. I like that it opens right in the middle of that trial, that we don't have the background on exactly what brought them to this place, because that's not important. What's important is that they're being cast out.
Yeah, it's sort of just like backdrop.
Yeah, that's where this begins. So, yeah, I am glad to hear that you enjoyed this movie, though.
I can't wait to get into like the specifics and the themes.
Well, let's do that. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and jump deeper in.
Yeah,
Deeper into the woods.
let's do it.
All right. And we are back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. I'm glad you made it out of the woods.
Thank you. My son didn't, though.
Oh, man. Don't worry. He'll show up naked and howling at the moon over...
George the cat.
George is a devil. George has made a pact with the devil.
He's already been possessed.
I'm certain of it.
He's our black sheep. What was the name?
Black Phillip?
Black Phillip, yeah.
He's Orange Phillip.
Orange Phillip.
Yep.
Orange is the new black.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Get
I'll
out.
be here all week.
I cast you out!
No! I am not a witch.
All right, where do you want to start with this thing?
Let's start with the family, because
Okay.
I think they're really interesting.
I think they're really interesting as well.
One of what struck me was they are clearly the antagonists of this story. They are causing all of their own problems, all of the drama, all of the tension is really driving from them. But then they have these quiet moments where you feel sorry for them, and where...
Like that awkward family dinner?
Well, no, that's the tension, but then, like, after she hits her husband, and they go inside, and,
Sure.
like, they're all hugging and forgiving each other, and it almost makes you forget this is gonna go horribly wrong.
Yeah, I don't know that
That's how I felt.
I don't know that my mind is ever far away how horribly wrong everything is just teetering on the edge of in this. But no, I understand what you mean. It's like in a Stephen King book or a good Stephen King movie, like how he will show you, like in It. Here's the kids having fun at the quarry. They're swimming, they're laughing, they're having a good time. And you just get swept up in that, and then you go, oh, also there's a killer clown who murders children.
Right.
Who's going to, like, you kind of forget about the clown so that when he shows up again, you're like, oh shit, that's right. We're still dealing with this. Yeah.
I think fun is a bit of an overstatement, like...
No, in this movie, there's no fun.
The tension is not broken, but you kind of get reminded of their humanity. And
Sure.
they're caring for each other.
You get reminded that they are a family. That's a point in the movie. I agree. She's. I think the wife, the mother, kind of gets brought back down to earth at that moment, and kind of remembers, like, oh, my son is out in the woods.
Right.
And let's set all the lies, let's set all of the drama aside, and keep in mind that everybody was doing what they were doing because they were trying to feed the family. Like,
right.
That's essentially, I think she kind of has this realization. At the same time,
I feel like she kind of teeters back and forth.
she is, yeah, I don't know if she's supposed to be like a bipolar character who's having these wild episodes or mood swings. But she is like she's a horribly unstable character, and in the way, not that being bipolar makes you horrible, but her mood swings make her very toxic. She lashes out at her husband. She lashes out at, she's terrible to the oldest daughter, to Thomason.
Right. And then also the fact that she, even though she's the wife of the family, she does kind of hold a lot of power. She's kind of the head of this family, I think.
Well, I mean...
her mood affects everything in the way she treats people.
Right. And she kind of says something to her husband at one point. She's like, I never meant to be a shrew to you. Like, she realizes she's sort of beaten this man into submission. But then, I don't know that she's like... I don't want to make her sound like she's just a regular nagging wife. I think she really is like a toxic person. But but they also like play with that in a way where she's hardcore grieving through most of the movie.
She's
lost a baby and is like really tore up about it. It's not like so you feel sympathy for her, but you're also like she's kind of a monster to the rest of her family at the same time.
Right, and like the sympathy that you feel for her and the reason she's so toxic are stemming from the same thing. Like, her toxicity is heightened by the fact that she's grieving.
Right. Like
and that they're in this stressful time.
She takes it out on Tom. When she says, where's my silver cup? And she's like, did a wolf take that too? Like, it's just like this very cutting remark where you're just like...
And we know what happened.
We know what happened, and we know she didn't do it. But even if she had, that's just such a horrible thing to say to your child. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
She's lost a child, too.
She's lost a sibling, right, and she was there when it happened.
Oh, it was a sibling?
Yeah, that's her...
I thought that was her baby.
No, it's...
Oh.
It's... Thomason is the oldest, and I think she... I don't know if this was commonplace. She's charged with kind of taking care of the younger... Thomason has a lot put on her.
She does.
I could see how you can see she's like a kind of head of household, but she just has a lot of responsibility put on her.
Okay, I thought it was her baby this whole time.
It's her baby brother that she's charged with looking after, and she's just playing with him. Again, that scene over and over. That is just like the peekaboo scene is so
horrible.
Great. Yeah. I say great. You say horrible.
Same thing.
Yeah.
In this movie, horrible is great.
Horrible is great. But yeah, it's a really the mom, I think, is a really interesting character because by the time she gets killed, I don't even feel bad. It's just sort of like she's just kind of a monster by the end of the movie.
Right. And then compare that to the father, who is sort of complacent in what they're doing and how they're acting, but he also feels conflicted, and he gives Thomason more of a say. He kind of listens to her a little more. There are times when he doesn't, but
he's trying to give her, I think, an opportunity to come clean, to, hey, let's fix this thing, so you don't get burned at a stake or something.
Right. He doesn't want to lose another kid.
I think it's there's a lot of what we talked about in Jojo Rabbit, where for me the most interesting part of Jojo Rabbit was the mother dealing with the fact that her son was a Nazi. Her son was kind of the worst of humanity.
Right.
And she loved him anyway and was trying to love him into submission. And I feel like this is a lot of the same kind of thing where he loves Thomason and he understands that she's under the influence of something, or believes her to be under the influence of something evil, and is looking for a way to rid her of that and still keep his daughter. And still, he's trying so hard, I feel like, to hold everything together and say, let's just get over this thing, and then everything will be fine. He keeps talking about, like, in the spring, this tree will be big. I'm going to plant a wheat field next. I'm going to finish the barn. And
he's kind of in denial.
A little bit. I think he's in denial, but I think he's also kind of an optimist. Like, this idea of, like, I don't need...
Same thing, right?
Sometimes.
Not really.
His idea of, I don't need this plantation. We'll go out in the wilderness, and I'll make my own go of it. Which we kind of find out he's insanely incapable of. Like,
Right.
I think I identify with the father in this movie because he's bad at farming. He's bad at hunting. They say he's good at chopping wood and that's it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Like I would drag my family out into the wilderness and we would all be on the brink of starving to death because there's no way I could farm enough food.
That is harsh.
Well, I mean, no, I know what my limitations are, and this guy William, I think clearly doesn't.
Can I say the fact that they talk about chopping wood being the only thing he can do, and then all of the wood falling on him while he dies?
Yes,
that's incredible.
There's an enormous pile of wood on the end of the house because he's just out there chopping wood all the time.
He's over chopped wood when he doesn't need to.
I don't think he's over chopped wood. I mean, that's supposed to get them through an entire winter.
True.
Yeah. But it is, the fact that falls on him and that he's pushed into. Let's talk about Black Phillip. I mean, because Black Phillip for me is the best part of this movie. It just
really
he's foreshadowed. I mean, first of all, he is one of the most badass looking goats I've ever seen. I mean, he's just cool looking, right?
Goats do look cool, though.
Goats look cool, and he is black, and he's big, and he has those giant horns. I think it's hilarious the way the twins torment him. Not that I think tormenting animals is funny. Those twins just creep me out and make me laugh because they're just the most awful children. But, I mean, Black Phillip is... From the very beginning, he's sort of they're kind of showing you, like, yes, this is the devil. The Black Phillip is the devil.
I kind of didn't see it until the end, though.
You don't see it until the end, and you look back, and you're like, oh, yeah, all the way through. But, like, even when he's putting them in the barn, when William's putting everybody in the barn.
Right.
And Thomason's like, don't put me in here, not with the goat. And, he says something like, if that beast was the devil, I'd have danced with him myself already. And he had wrestled with that goat already. He had sort of... And then at the end, it is Black Phillip that does him in. Like, it's...
Right.
It's very much like... And he even comes to realize it. Like, he picks up the axe and then he just puts it down. He's like, this is the devil. There's no... What, am I going to fight the devil? Yeah. Like, it... So I really appreciate, like... that Black Phillip is sort of sparingly used. He's not in this movie a lot.
Right.
But I feel like it's one of those elements of the story where it kind of... They get the most use out of him when he is on screen. When he is brought into the story.
I think the witch in this story is almost like a red herring... So you don't pay attention to the fact that Black Phillip is there corrupting everyone.
Sure. Yeah, they show you the literal witch in the woods,
right?
And you're like, oh, it's real.
It kind of adds,
yeah.
It gives us the paranoia that they felt at the time.
Like, yeah, I think so. And I think it is at the end of this movie. There's the text that comes up on screen. And it's
impossible to read font.
It's pretty rough, yes. But at home you can pause it.
Right, yes.
I'm sure in the theater
it has something good to say.
On a big screen it was probably a little easier to read. It's italicized, yes. It's supposed to look like old script handwriting.
I get it.
Yeah. But it is saying that this movie is sort of put together from New England folktales about witches and what else? Diaries and court transcripts.
Yeah.
And so there is like a fairy tale element to the witch who's living in the woods. You know, it's
very fairy tale.
There's like this rundown shack in the middle of this forest. And, you know...
It looks like Snow White and Brave
exactly.
and every other witch you've seen.
Exactly. Every Disney witch, every kind of Grimm's fairy tale witch living in the woods. It is from, and I have to think that is from some weird folktale in New England. It's some
I'm sure it
sort
is.
of colonial thing. I want to see. I didn't do this before we recorded. I want to see if I can look up like what elements of this movie were taken from. Like, is Black Phillip like an actual callback to like some family's claim that they had a goat that was the devil? It was,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think I recognized a lot of things like the signing of the book and the
Sure.
being naked and the dancing in the forest around a fire, like from now I can't remember the name of the play, The Crucible.
okay, yeah.
There's a lot of elements of that in here, and that's also it's coming from the same source material.
It's all kind of witch lore, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like the old school kind of elements of that. But all of these things I think are super interesting, and that this is so. But is this movie a just simply straightforward amalgamation of like folk tales from this time period, or does this movie have a theme? Is this a metaphor for something? Are they trying to say something deeper?
Now, what I got from this movie could be totally different from what other people get from it.
Okay.
But when it was revealed that okay, she's signing over, she's becoming a witch, I thought at that point, oh, this is a story about religion fear-mongering and turning people away from the church.
Okay.
That's sort of what I got from it is she's being liberated in the sense that she is turning away from this religion that has basically ruined her life.
It's been restrictive. Sure.
Right.
Well, I think that's a totally fair read, especially in the end, you know, when she's floating up, she's, I mean, free of everything. She's free of all rules, including gravity, apparently, you know.
Right, yeah.
And she's laughing, and she's just sort of like, oh, you know, this feels good to be free of all this baggage, you know.
I just think like I think that is what this movie is trying to say, but I do think there are some certain choices that like counterclaim that or make it a little weird. Like the witch is an antagonist. She does awful things.
Right.
And she is working with the devil. So like I don't know. It's almost as if it's trying to say like, oh, you're evil for being liberated. And like I don't know, those just feel like conflicting messages.
Well, I don't know if there's any one correct answer or one message that is consistent all the way through. I kind of think this is just a story about people leaving the church, because that read is on it too. They leave the plantation.
Right.
You know, they're cast out. Maybe it is about pride, and this is the downfall of the proud. But they leave the church. It is almost like a religious message, like this is what will happen if you leave the church. They go out into this place that is seemingly paradise, right?
Right. They find a great land.
It's sort of a trap laid by the devil because they make their home there.
Doesn't the mom say there's a line about meeting the devil in the woods, or like he's going to tempt you to leave the woods, and she compares that to their situation, like, see, we've been tempted out into the woods with the devil.
Yeah, there's something about, I mean, they forbid their children to go into the woods. They forbid their children to leave the farm. There is some sort of parallel to the Bible story about Jesus going out into the wilderness and the devil tempting him.
Right, that's what I'm...
And it's, I think there is some lineup there, but this is sort of like, well, okay, what if Jesus had taken the devil up on that instead of resisting temptation? But like, I really think it is kind of a straightforward idea of like, oh, here's this perfect land for us. Oh, all our food is rotten. Here's this goat we have who is a monster. We're on the verge of these spooky woods that are full of wolves and, probably there was a legend about a witch or something evil in those woods. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I kind of think like that's the straightforward part of it, but there is like this underlying message. Like, you go out into the world away from your religion, and the world's a dangerous place. Or the world's an evil place without your religion, without your church. And it's almost like this. It's almost like those kind of cautionary tale Christian movies.
Right.
But it's actually so much darker than any actual Christian movie would dare to go. You know what I mean? It's a better made movie.
I think the birth of a lot of the witch folk tales is sort of
Cautionary tales.
what you said. Yeah, if you leave the church, you're going to get fucked, basically. But I read it more as like the church is turning people away because of the witch stuff. Because throughout this movie, Thomasin hasn't done anything wrong.
Right.
But she is still blamed for everything, and religion is causing that blame. Like,
Right. Sure.
so she is being turned away by her own religion.
Right. She's kind of, well, and they were cast out by their religion too. So is this an anti-religious movie
I think so.
or a pro-religious movie?
I think it's an anti-religious movie built on folk tales that are religious propaganda.
Okay. Now, do you see the witch or Satan or whatever force of evil? Do you see that as the antagonist or the protagonist of this movie?
Well, that's the thing, is at the end, they're the protagonist. But throughout this whole movie, they've been terrorizing the family, and so it doesn't line up. I want to say they're the protagonist.
Well, that depends. Do you see the family as the protagonist or the antagonist?
I see them mostly as antagonists.
Okay.
I think they really created their own downfall.
Sure.
My main hang-up with this movie, and it might sound silly, is that witches are real. Like, I feel like you could have the same story about witch mania where
sure.
it isn't real, because this is something that people went through. Women were blamed for everything and called witches. And so to make witches real is almost like, oh, they were valid in murdering those women.
I don't think it's making a value judgment on the Salem witch trials. I think that this is about the mania of witches, but it's not saying. I don't think it's trying to validate that or be some sort of anti-woman message. I think it's looking at witchcraft. I think it's looking at turning away from religion as a form of liberation.
Right.
I mean, to see how liberated she is at the end. Yes, she owes her soul to the devil.
Right. I agree
yeah.
with that. I just feel like the execution conflicts the message.
Would you rather
ways.
this was a Shining style movie where it wasn't about whether or not the witch actually existed? It was about the paranoia around the idea of a
Yes.
witch. Okay.
I would love that.
I think that would also be super interesting. And for half of this movie, I feel like that is what happens. Like, there's the whole part down by the brook where
she plays along.
she goes, "Oh yeah, I am the witch, and I'll eat you," and it scares the shit out of the little girl, and it is like for.
That's why I feel like you almost don't need the witch in this story.
Right.
There is the part about liberation, though.
I think I like the structure where you are. Man, I don't even know if it's half of this movie, because after the baby gets taken, we see the witch. We see
right.
the witch.
We know from the beginning that the witch exists.
We get to see Kellyanne Conway's ritual to stay to,
4 more years
to maintain the energy to run the yes. But yeah, I guess it doesn't even go that far. I forgot they kind of show you right up front.
They do show you the witch, but you almost forget about her. Like, she doesn't do anything for 90% of the movie.
Yeah, I think we see her, 3 times before the very end?
Right, we see her steal the baby.
Yep.
We see Caleb actually goes to her.
Right.
She doesn't even seek him out.
No, she does.
She does?
The rabbit. He's following the rabbit.
Oh, okay.
She's the rabbit.
I got that she was the rabbit, but, like, I just thought... I didn't see that he was chasing the rabbit.
She gets the dog to chase, and then he goes after the dog. And,
okay.
And that's how he winds up at the house.
Oh, well, now that I'm thinking about that, she tries it with the dad, too. The dad and Caleb.
Right.
When they see the rabbit, but they don't go for it.
Right.
They go back.
That's
an interesting...
And she's in the goat's barn too.
Right, yeah.
As the rabbit.
Kind of like meeting with Black Phillip.
Right. I mean, it's all there. I mean, she's one of the witches is the crow. I mean, the crow in the dream. I mean, it's all scattered in there. But like the actual the woman, the witch woman, I think we only see 3 times. And one time she's young, so it's like 2 different women at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, we do see that. You're right. The mystery isn't really there as to whether or not it's real. I think that's valid. I don't think it carries through I think to make the movie, to bring it to where they brought it to, and not just to have the devil there, but to have basically the entire family murdered. I kind of think you have to have the witch be real. I don't think straight up paranoia kills off this entire family.
Probably not. I think that's valid.
I mean, that's just my thought of it. It would be an entirely different movie, essentially.
It would be. And I'm not trying to say this movie is bad for having the witch be real. I just feel like with some of the messages, I don't know. I feel like it's saying a lot. And some of it contradicts itself.
I think that's fair. I think this is a movie about madness. I think it is a movie that's about religion, but I don't think it's about religion in a positive way.
It's definitely not positive.
I think it's about the restrictive nature of a very strict religious kind of outlooks. I think it's about obsession. I think it's about paranoia. And I think it's about isolation. This, and this is what I was saying about like the lighthouse. The lighthouse is basically about 2 men who go mad because they're isolated on this island.
This guy clearly has a thing for...
This guy has a thing about isolation movies, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Well, now that you say that, I think the thing that is isolating them is the pride and religion.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I mean when I say, like, they are the antagonists. They did this to themselves with their bad choices in the beginning.
I think they're the antagonists because of their judgment on everyone around them and everyone they encounter, basically. This movie's about hypocrisy as well. Like, their father is a giant hypocrite. He lies all the time.
Right.
Like, he's constantly, I mean, and he's doing what we all do, in that he justifies this in saying, like, I don't want to tell anybody that we're starving out here because it will just freak everybody out.
Right.
So I'm going to steal this silver cup and buy some traps and try to feed my family. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's.
But then he acts better than them still.
Right, but he's so righteous and so unbending in these religious views, which he is constantly breaking. Like so it's a very strange or a very bold kind of way to have this character who's pretty central to your movie, is to have him be a compromised character. And I think they're saying something about religious people, about these very strict spiritual people who really don't live up to the values that they judge other people for.
I think that's fair.
I think this movie's saying a lot of things, but it's not like this movie is about this one thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm coming up against in this conversation here.
But all of the things are like similar in nature, but they don't all line up.
They're connected.
Is what's confusing me.
Sure. It's easy to look at this, like I said, as a... You need your church. You need your church to keep from straying into evil. You can look at it that way, or you can look at it as they carried these religious practices out there, and that's what ultimately drove them apart.
Right.
You know, or made them susceptible to the evil coming in.
I think I keep looking for a through line, but
I think
it's kind of
too.
open-ended.
I think that's my hang up with this movie too, is I cannot nail down what the theme of this movie is. And that's, I think that's fine. I think this movie works on its own level of just basically being a haunted forest story.
Right.
You know, and that's the level I probably enjoy it on the most.
I think it's very playful in the way that it depicts witches.
Yeah.
Like, not playful in a, like,
No,
ooh,
no,
this is fun.
But yeah, no, I get it. It's a little bit like...
They draw from these existing myths and sort of make it scary. They make an apple in the mouth scary. They make a house in the woods scary.
Everything is very creepy.
Right.
Everything is very foreboding. Right?
Right, but I don't think... When I think of the things that they used, just like separately, it's not scary or eerie.
Sure, but in context of the movie, you know, spitting out an apple when they've been talking about, I haven't seen an apple since we left England. Well, okay, here's this rotten crab apple that your brother just barfed up, you know, like...
Right.
And the fact that kind of comes from like a Snow White type of story, you know, the
eating the apple,
the enchanted apple,
right,
or something like that. I think, yeah, maybe there's another level to that.
I just think they do a good job of not accidentally becoming like cringy or like cheesy,
right, or extreme, or body horror, or trying to do like The Nun, or you know, like these things of like, ooh, you know, we're gonna really scare the shit out of you with this. It's
this movie kind of knows what it is.
Yeah, it's more of a mood piece where it's just sort of like the overall mood. You just feel dread watching this, and I don't know why that's fun to me.
It is fun
to sit and feel dread and anxiety. We've talked about this a couple of times on other episodes, but a movie like Uncut Gems, which is just this anxiety pounding, constant tension. I have an anxiety disorder, but that kind of anxiety in a movie, I really lean into. It holds my attention. I think there's something, I've heard other people talk about this who have anxiety and love like horror movies. They're like, this is a movie, and I know, you know, all the money went to all these white art, you know.
I go to a show choir concert. I guarantee you, I have sung so many African songs, like, no hate to choir, but they definitely do steal a lot of songs.
Yeah, there's, well, in choir, a lot of that stuff is probably just I mean, it's seen as traditional music now, right?
Yeah. I just feel like there's a slight problem with, like, especially when you're an all-white choir.
Sure. No, I get it.
There's
It's hard. It's
cultural
hard to know
context.
where's the
I sung.
where's the tribute line? Where's the homage to where are we? Should we be singing this? Are we paying tribute or are we doing damage?
Me and 30 other white kids
Sure.
sung Wading in the Water without knowing what the song was about. We weren't taught. And then later I found out, oh, that's a song about escaping being slaves.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah. I just feel like the cultural part of that song was left out. And
I think there's a conversation that we're not going to get to the bottom of
it's
here.
A separate...
But I think that is a conversation to have, and I think that's back to this movie. Like, that's an interesting angle to this movie too. Is this is essentially a rich white man trying to appropriate Chris's art and trying to he's a failed artist, and he thinks if he has Chris's eye, he can be a success where he never was.
Right.
Which is, I think, another really interesting, subtle angle to this movie.
Right. I truly think that nothing in this movie is unintentional.
Oh, I'm sure it's all very intentional. And I think Jordan Peele is probably a very intentional filmmaker. I think if you watch Us, did you watch Us?
I haven't seen it, but now I really want to.
Us kind of fell short for me.
Okay.
But you can look at that movie and everything in it it's very obviously intentional. Like, everything is so specific in that movie. Like, there's things that don't make sense, which means, oh, that's a symbol for something. That stands for something. Like, everything in there is super spot on intentional.
Do you think maybe that movie is more intended for black people? Do you think...
No. That's not a read I got from it. Maybe I need to watch it again. I think it's a more heady movie. It's a kind of trippier movie.
Okay.
It's a lot weirder. And at a certain point, I honestly, I think where it goes wrong is when it tries to explain everything. I kind of think if you would just let this be a weird head trip, I would appreciate this movie so much more.
My thing is, I really liked the trippy parts of this movie. One of my favorite things was the sunken place.
The hypnotism was great. Yeah.
The way they visualized it with him falling and the colors and the stars. It was so beautiful.
I had a weird, I may cut this out because I don't want to be judged. I had a weird meditation flashback to where I had a guided meditation I did one time, and then I felt like I was a smaller version of me inside the regular size version of me.
That's cool.
It was super cool. But watching it this time, I'm like, oh my God, I know what that's like now.
Whoa, you've been to the sunken place.
I've been to the sunken place. I put myself in the sunken place.
Do you think that guided meditation was an attempt to steal your body for your superior...
I wish they would have put it in a nicer house. I just wish I would have been bought by somebody who lived in a better situation than I do.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
that would be ideal.
If you're going to sell me, upsell me, please.
Come on.
Yeah, put me in a nicer car. I love the sunken place. I love the Chris. I keep forgetting his name. Daniel Kaluuya. When he's fighting the hypnotism, but also falling prey to it, and he just has like tears rolling out.
Yes,
it is such a good performance. I think he's such a solid actor in this movie. He really sells everything he's doing when he's upset.
Yeah,
when he's trying to make nice with everybody, but you can see he's very upset below the surface. Like, he keeps finding his phone unplugged.
Right.
When he's paranoid. And when he is sad about his mom, all of his mom memories coming up, it is, I think that is just one of the most solid performances in this movie is that one scene. Him and Catherine Keener both are just putting on a clinic.
It's so amazing.
Yeah,
and
she goes sink, and he like he's fighting it, and she goes sink, and he just like falls through the mattress. It's so good. Yeah.
One of my favorite things was, once after everything went down, and she and him both see the teacup at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And he like smashes it, but then she still manages to slightly hypnotize him. Like if you look at the fight scene where she has the knife and everything, they make eye contact and like they hold it for. I swear that was meant to be hypnotism.
Like she's just sort of like still like, trying to put him in the trance.
Even without it, she's still managing,
she's still,
and then
like,
he fights
powerful.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, she's manipulative. Everybody in this movie is super manipulative. So it's that totally fits.
White people.
What are you gonna do? Last thing I want to hit. Have you seen the new Twilight Zone yet? The Jordan Peele Twilight Zone.
I've seen one episode.
Is it good? I haven't seen any of it.
I liked it. It was about a meteor crashing and making people have toxic masculinity. Or heightening toxic masculinity. It was an interesting episode, though.
It's been shaped like a set of balls.
Oh, my God.
Everybody's pumped up. No, I haven't seen any of it yet. I've been curious about it. I think we talked about this before. I just don't want to subscribe to CBS.
Sorry, CBS. Unless you want to sponsor us.
Yeah, please. I'll take a sponsorship just for a subscription plan.
I really want to see more from Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I mean that's part of why I want to. I'm a Twilight Zone fan, the original,
right?
Yeah, which is part of it. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what Jordan Peele does as a filmmaker, and I don't want to see him. If he likes doing horror and that's what he wants to do, like, perfect. But I don't want the expectation to be put on him that, like, oh, he's a horror director now. That's all I want to see from him. To where, like,
right.
You know, like, if he wants to come back and do comedy again, or if he wants to do, like, just a straightforward drama. Like, I think Jordan Peele is one of those guys who isn't about what genre he's working in. I think he's a storyteller. And whatever area he decides to work in, he's going to excel at that if he's left alone to do what he wants to do.
He could do a movie musical if he wanted to.
I think he probably could. And I would probably... I'm not even a fan of musicals, and I would probably go watch it if Jordan Peele made one, because I think he does... Even Us, which was not my favorite, was interesting enough. You got to respect him as a filmmaker to go and check it out.
He has ideas and he's competent. The more I think about it, the more I feel like Key and Peele was like almost him practicing, like, because they do a bunch of different, like, obviously it's all comedy and it's all skits,
right? But
like the tones of them wildly vary.
Some stuff is a little darker.
Some of it's it's all over the place.
Some of it's there's a lot of social commentary in that as well.
Right.
But yeah, it's plus the comedy horror parallel.
Yeah.
Is tension relief.
I'm not saying it's not good on its own. I just feel like that was partly a way of him heightening his directing abilities.
I think so. That's all I got. You got anything else?
I don't know. I think that's it.
This was your pick. If you got anything else, man.
We've kind of covered everything.
Shout it out. Okay, cool. Recommend? Good Halloween movie?
Oh, totally.
All right.
I don't know. For Halloween specifically, I look more for like slightly whimsical.
Okay.
Slightly less. This is a more serious.
A little heavy. This is a little heavy for Halloween.
And also, it's a bit light on the horror aspects. Not light, but there's more social commentary and drama.
You're white. Okay, let's say it's a brain transplant that turns you from being gay to being straight. Is that more horrific to you?
I can read the horrific aspects of this without having to relate it.
No, I'm asking. This is back to my question before about, is there a different level of scary to this movie? If you are... I understand...
Well, I think that would have to be a totally different movie, but...
Right.
That would probably tap into something, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think this movie is very scary to some people.
I'm
And for
not
us,
saying...
it's a scary movie. We understand where the fright comes from, but people who live the real world scariness of being black in America every day, I think are going to have a different level of fright to this.
I think that's true. I didn't mean to downplay the...
No, I don't think you
it,
downplayed it.
yeah.
I just say I think some people will find this movie scarier than others do.
That's natural when you have a subject like this.
Yeah, I think so. It's yeah, I think this movie's suspenseful all the way through, and where I think it is fun, I think there's enough comedy in it. I think this is a good, if you're looking for something scary for Halloween. A lot of people like to watch horror during Halloween, and you're right.
Right.
A lot of people, it is fun, whimsical. Slasher movies are fun because they're not really scary outside of like jump scares.
Right.
I think this movie is
going to make you
heavier.
Think more
Right.
than maybe some people want to
This is
this
is not a
holiday.
seasonal horror movie, but I would say if you're looking for something that's genuinely suspenseful and frightening for your Halloween marathon, I think you can't go wrong with this movie.
Just know there's not a single pumpkin in sight.
Not one.
Not one.
It does look like it's kind of fall, though. It's nice.
Interesting.
It is nice.
I would recommend this movie, though.
Absolutely. I think that goes without saying. We've been ranting about it for a long time.
Right.
All right, let's close that out and move on to shout-outs. You got a shout-out this week, Oz, or you want me to go?
I do have a shout out.
All right, let's have it.
My shout out is Julia Nickel, I believe. Is that how you say it?
Nolke.
Nolke. Okay,
I would
yeah.
say.
That sounds more right. She has a YouTube channel, and
Spell it.
it's Nolke.
Good.
Okay. And her videos are just genuinely some of the funniest things I've seen. It's just like 4 to 5 minute skits. The one that I saw first was
Just straight comedy sketches, like improv?
yeah, it's a straight up. It's not improv though. It's heavily scripted.
Okay.
I think. The one that I saw was her explaining quarantine to her past self.
Okay.
And it was just so funny because it was like, oh, well, there's no way 2020 can be worse. Remember the wildfires? and she's like totally forgetting all the things that happened in January because of how much worse things have been.
Right.
It just put a fun spin on quarantine, and
I think we could all use a little comedy at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so.
she makes a bunch of very funny videos like that, usually with her playing all the parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
I have a YouTube channel as well. This one is called Long Lost Friend Studio, and it is cartoonist Vince Dorse. He's a illustrator. He does a comic strip called The Untold Tales of Bigfoot. But this is him drawing typically just kind of like a daily sketch kind of thing. He doesn't do them daily, but it's him and his friend Michelle Miller, and she does this really interesting... Mostly it's Vince drawing, but once in a while it will be her like crafting these things out of felt. He's making like these little plush sculptures.
Okay.
It's very cool. But it's like time lapses of that. He'll draw like Scooby-Doo villains, or he's done monsters. He did like Godzilla. He's done Freddy Krueger. Just these small sketches that he does, and they're time lapse, and they're just providing comment. He's talking about how they're drawing, and they make jokes and do a bunch of just fun stuff in there. It's a really just fun YouTube channel. They're typically, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 minutes long. Just these little slices of fun drawing and conversational comedy videos.
It sounds like a good in-look on, like, art and making stuff.
Yeah, it's really there's some cool process stuff. They've done a couple sculpture things, and that's interesting to me because I don't do that.
Right.
But yeah, as just somebody who draws, I like to watch other people draw. I like to see pens that he's using, techniques that he's using. And he usually talks a little bit about it, but it's also just all in fun. They're having a good time and they're cutting up and
Right.
yeah, it's just a cool art and conversation, lighthearted art videos. So give that a look. It's Long Lost Friends Studio on YouTube.
All right. That sounds good.
At this point, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It really helps our visibility and helps us grow the show.
That's true. And another way you can help us grow is to tell people about us. Friends, family, random strangers on the street.
Please flag down random people. Keep a 6-foot distance, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you just tell stray cats, they'll spread the word.
Oh, they are big gossips. That's very helpful.
Yeah. That just about does it.
That does just about do it. It's my pick next week.
What do you got?
I have got The Witch.
The Witch.
Or, as you may have seen it written, The Vavitch.
The Witch.
Yeah. Colonial, sort of pilgrim times.
Salem?
Kind of. But it's about this family that has been cast out of their religious community. And they make a homestead out on in the wilderness. And then some very strange things start happening and religious fanaticism. There's a rumored witch in the woods nearby. A baby goes missing. A lot of just crazy.
It sounds like The Village.
It is like a setting very similar to The Village, but
I'm not trying to be like, it's derivative.
hey, I like The Village. I know I'm in the minority there, but this is it's very much a slow burn. It's very kind of like old speak. We're gonna watch it with the subtitles on. It's very hard to understand.
Okay,
but
thank you.
I absolutely love this movie. I think like this is a just very creepy, very menacing kind of movie. I think we're gonna have a good time talking about it.
Okay, it sounds very Halloween-y.
It kind of is because it's like the old school witches with buckles on their hats and so, like it's from this time period, the Salem stuff, with the weird clothes and it's
hocus pocus vibes.
Sure, there's a lot of really strange kind of old world stuff, but it's very, very creepy. It's very menacing kind of devil worship movie.
Well, now I can't wait.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time with it. Austin, what do you got for social media this week?
The same I always do. Austin.n.rood.
Every podcast is somebody's first.
That's true. That is true. That's on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter.
All right. I am philrood.com. You can get all my social media handles there, and all of our episode information is there, as well as YouTube links. I do drawings for every episode, and I post them on YouTube.
Okay.
Austin, you want to read our credits?
Sure. We do everything ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.